Welcome to my top 10 games of week 9. We're back to another completely packed schedule of games to watch this week. Last week I said, I thought it was going to be not a snooze fest because there's no week in college football that's a snooze fest, but just a little bit of an under the radar weekend for a lot of the college football matchups. And you know what? It turned out to be incredible because some of those games that weren't supposed to be very good, like Kansas versus Oklahoma and Navy versus Cincinnati, turned out to be awesome. So every single weekend in college football has just been awesome to watch this season. It's great to have football back. Fully back, for real. All right, so this week we've got a ton of games, so it was hard to narrow them down. There's about 16 games that I thought we should look at. We're going to look at those top 10. As always, I'm going to give you the top 10 games. I'm going to give you where to watch them, of course, time, that kind of thing, television channel information. I'm going to give you the Vegas spread. I'm going to give you the ESPN prediction. I'm going to give you top players for each of those games, just a little bit of analysis on each one, and then I'm going to give you my predictions for each game and my prediction against the over-under. Talking about predictions, it was a really good week for me last week. I was 7 out of 10 on win-losses, so 7 games picked correctly for wins, and then 8 out of 10s for over-unders. That brings me up overall in the season so far. I'm 50 out of 80 on win-losses, which is a 63% so far. And then on the under-over, I am 74%. I've actually picked correctly on 59 out of 80 matchups. ESPN has me on the win-losses right now. They've been doing a good job picking them. They're at 56 out of 80, 70% overall on the win-loss column. But I'm not too far behind. Hopefully I can catch up again this weekend. This last weekend, ESPN and myself tied 7 out of 10 picking the matchups. All right, so let's go into this week. As always, quickly here, not recapping, but just noting some of the other games to watch. Every game in college football is awesome. Usually I have 3 or 4 monitors set up, and then I have 4 games on my laptop. I can usually watch 7 or 8 games at a time. So I try to watch every single game. Don't always get around to it. But these are ones you definitely want to put on your calendar to watch here in the other section. Number 12, Cincinnati versus Tulane. Tulane team that almost beat Oklahoma at the start of the season, and then Cincinnati almost lost to Navy. So that could be a little bit of a trap game there. And then you got number 9, Iowa versus Wisconsin. Miami versus number 19, Pitt. Hawaii versus Utah State. I think that should be a very good game. Number 1, Georgia versus Florida. And then Texas Tech versus Oklahoma, number 4 Oklahoma there. So that's going to all be great games. Definitely want to tune in and watch. Didn't make the top 10, but definitely still good to watch this week. All right, so let's get into the top 10 here. So first 10, you might call me a little bit biased, but I think I don't just grade based on the impact of the game. I also grade based on the watchability. So number 10 here is Boise State 3-4 versus Colorado State 3-4. Probably the most interesting matchup of 2 3-4 teams that you could ever watch. Both of these teams have been a couple of plays away, a couple of points away from at least 5-2 records, if not better this season. I mean, Colorado State brought Iowa down to 14-24 towards the end, and they were leading at one point in that game. So these are 2 teams, and of course Boise State beat BYU. These are 2 teams that have been very, very close in a lot of matchups, of course having disappointing seasons. Colorado State, not necessarily as disappointing as Boise State's 3-4. 3-4 for Boise State is a very disappointing season. But there's still 2 very good college football teams that are better than their record. And this is a matchup that has been bringing about a lot of tension recently. Boise State is 10-0 against Colorado State. But the last 2 matchups in Fort Collins, Boise State has won by 7 points or less in each of them. 31-24 in the 2019 matchup, and then 59-52 with an overtime and an onside kick recovery that Boise State had to get to force overtime in 2017. So I think that this is going to be a very, very interesting game, at least early on in this one. Definitely think you want to tune in. It's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All times on Eastern Time, CBS Sports Network. Top player for this one is going to be Boise State wide receiver Khalil Shakir, one of the best players in the Mountain West, my top receiver in the Mountain West, and one of the best receivers I've ever seen at Boise State. He's had, I think, 5 one-handed catches so far this season, a couple of those for touchdowns. It's just amazing talent. 659 receiving yards so far for 4 touchdowns. I am not going to tell you who I'm picking in this game because I'm doing a whole preview of the game in my 3 keys to the game video. I'm going to put that link in the description. I'll also tell you what I'm picking as over-under in that video. All right, moving on here. Number 9, North Carolina. Oh, sorry, and I forgot to mention here, Boise State's favored by 2.5 points and given a 66.5% chance of winning, according to ESPN. All right, so number 9, North Carolina 4-3 at number 11, 6-1 Notre Dame, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC. Notre Dame is favored by 3.5 points and given a 66.3% chance of winning. This weekend is huge for all the ranked teams and even some of the teams just outside the rankings, because this is the week, November 2nd on Tuesday, that the College Football Playoff Committee is coming out with their rankings. It's going to be official. None of this hyperbole, none of this, messing around with AP rankings. That's all for fun. But the official rankings that will determine who goes to the playoff, which New Year's Six, which group of five champion gets a shot to go to the New Year's Six. All of that will be determined if Cincinnati has a chance to go play in the playoffs. All of that will be determined by the playoff ranking committee, or will the ball become a little bit more clearer? That crystal ball that we all the analysts look through become a little more clearer after these rankings come out. We could see some major shifts. Right now, Notre Dame is sitting at not a terrible season, and their only loss is to a currently ranked number 2 Cincinnati. So they're trying to still prove that they deserve to be in the conversation for the playoffs. It's a tough road for them the way out, not because it's hard games. That's the opposite. It's not a lot of great matchups the rest of the week, rest of the road here. And so they definitely need to go undefeated if they want to have a chance of being in that conversation. And honestly, they do play Virginia, and that's going to be a pretty good game. But North Carolina is one of the better teams they have left. So they need to come in, they need to crush, they need to dominate this game if they want to have a chance of convincing the playoff committee that they have a shot. But more importantly than that, this is big for Cincinnati, because Cincinnati doesn't play a lot of great teams this year. The AAC is very, very weak this season. So they need to have Notre Dame do well to prove that they deserve to be in the conversation for the playoffs with a win over Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is favored in this one by 3.5 points, given a 66.3% chance of winning. My top player of the game for this one is North Carolina wide receiver Josh Downs, 7th in the nation receiving yards, 837 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns, 13.9 yards per reception. If North Carolina can get the upset in this one, it'll be due to his efforts and, of course, going through Sam Howell there at the quarterback position. So does North Carolina get the upset in this one? I don't think so. I think Notre Dame continues to roll as they push towards the end of their season. I definitely have a New Year's Six bowl in mind for them coming up towards the end of the year here, but they're going to try and push for that playoff spot. We'll have to see what happens. North Carolina wins in this one and goes over on the over-under. All right, number 22, Iowa State at 3-4 West Virginia, 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. It's crazy to me that this game is on ESPN Plus. So it's on the Big 12 network on ESPN Plus, because this, I think, it's a good game, and secondly, this is still a team that is competing for the Big 12 championship. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Baylor are all lockstep behind Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's sitting at 4-0, but those three teams I just mentioned all are at 3-1 right now. So all they're waiting for is Oklahoma to have a slip-up and for one of those other teams to lose that those 3-1 teams have lost to so far. I'm trying to remember who Iowa State lost to. I think it's Oklahoma State that they lost to. Anyhow, whoever it was that they lost to, they need that team to drop, and then they'll be right back in the conversation. Iowa State's still firmly in the conversation for a chance to go and play in the Big 12 championship game. And honestly, right now, this West Virginia game, though, is a bit of a trap game, because after this game next week, Iowa State goes and plays Texas, and that's probably where their eyes are. West Virginia not having a great season this year, so they're not necessarily concentrating on this matchup. So this is definitely a bit of a trap game. Iowa State's favored by 7 points, given a 70.4% chance of winning, and their running back is the top player of the game for me in this one. Breece Hall, who's had 818 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns, 5.3 yards per carry. Prior to last week's game, he actually had 4 straight 100-plus yard rushings performances. So this is a big game because it can help determine potentially who that Big 12 champion is going to be if Oklahoma takes a loss, which I think they're going to at some point. They've been so close. You don't barely beat Kansas and end up going undefeated the whole season. They have been so close so many times. And you name pretty much all their games, from Kansas through Tulane. Every single one has been down to the wire, not looking good, not looking dominant, and they've been able to sneak by. And it's not going to work much longer. Texas Tech might take them down. I mean, they're a better team than Kansas, and Kansas almost beat them. So, this is a big game for Iowa State to stay in that hunt. I'm picking Iowa State in this one. I'm going over on the over-under, but I do think it'll be an interesting game. All right, number 7, Texas. At going up against 6-1, number 16 Baylor. This noon on ABC. This is a big game for all the reasons I mentioned about Iowa State, because Baylor is a team. Not only is this a good matchup between Texas and Baylor, it's going to be a very, very interesting offensive matchup, I believe. But also, like I said, Baylor's one of those teams that's right there in the hunt for the Big 12 championship game. Noon on ABC, so at least the networks are recognizing what a big matchup this is. It's going to be Baylor is favored by 3 points. But Texas is actually favored by ESPN. So Baylor's given the point spread advantage by Vegas, but Texas is given the advantage by ESPN, 53.7% chance, which is close. For me, it's the Baylor quarterback here. He's got 1,563 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, only one interception. That's big. That ability to make the right decisions, to not throw the picks, that's going to be big for me on this one. So I do think Baylor takes the win, but I think it's going to be very, very interesting, very, very close. I would love to call it even with 3 points, but I'm almost never right when I call even on what Vegas is predicting. So I'm going to call over, but I'm thinking probably 4 points, 4 to 7, somewhere in that range. But 4 to 5 is probably more likely. So a very, very close offensive battle here between these two very, very interesting teams in the Big 12. All right, into the top 6 here. Number 6, number 10, Ole Miss at number 18, Auburn. Brian Harsin is just doing great things with Auburn like we knew he would. I thought he was a great coach at Boise State. I thought he was a great hire over at Auburn. 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Auburn is favored in this one, which is surprising to me, but they're favored 2.5 points, given a 58.7% chance of winning. And I love seeing that. I'm rooting for Auburn in this one. I'm not an Auburn fan necessarily, but my uncle did go there, and of course Brian Harsin is the head coach there. So I am supporting Auburn this season because of Brian Harsin mostly, and I am rooting for them. But I am surprised to see that they're favored in this matchup, and mostly that because of the top player of the game for me in this, which is Matt Corral for Ole Miss, thrown for almost 2,000 yards passing, 1,913 yards, 15 touchdowns, only one interception. So we talk about ball control and being able to not make the bad decisions like we do with the Baylor quarterback. Well, here we go. Only one interception. He also has 475 yards rushing and 9 touchdowns on the ground. So he leads Ole Miss in rushing and passing. I thought that, obviously Auburn had a big win last week, and that was great for them to be able to get that win. I think Auburn's having a good season, and I wish them success, and I am rooting for them in this one, but I just don't see how they get past Ole Miss or how they match, Ole Miss's offensive firepower in this one. Bo Nix, he's starting to play a little bit better for Auburn here, a little bit closer to what Auburn fans and Auburn faithful were hoping to see out of him, but he's not quite reached that top level yet, that the full development that people were hoping to see out of Bo Nix here. And I do think that Ole Miss takes this game. I think it'll be slightly higher than that 2.5 spread there. So I'm going over on the over-under. But I think it's going to be a very, very interesting game. Not a ton to play for, honestly, between these two teams. They're not, but it is an interesting game, and I think that it's going to be an offensive fire battle, whatever I'm trying to say. Offensive shootout. There we go, in this matchup. Okay, into the top 5 here, and we're nearing the end, so I'm glad that with the pace we're going at timing-wise. All right, number 19, 7-0 SMU at 6-1 Houston. SMU extremely overranked, in my opinion. I have no idea why they're ahead of San Diego State, who has a much better record than them, but regardless, that's for the College Football Playoff Committee to just determine. And you know what? Honestly, that's why this game is so huge. SMU trying to prove, and this is a good game. It's one of the better teams they've played all season here at Houston. They're trying to prove that they deserve to be the team. If Cincinnati either goes to the playoffs or if something happens, they get knocked out. They're trying to prove with Coastal Carolina out of the rankings now, or not out of the rankings, but potentially out of the discussion with that loss to App State. They're trying to prove that they're that number 2 team, potentially with AAC trying to send 2 teams to the playoffs. They're trying to prove that a win, and not a close win. They need to have a big win against Houston to prove that they deserve it over the Mountain West champion, who honestly the Mountain West, and all the experts are agreeing on this one. I say it most years anyway, but at least at this year I'm in lockstep with the rest of the experts are saying the Mountain West is the best Group of 5 conference this year by far. And honestly, in my opinion, they deserve to have 3 teams in the top 25 right now instead of just the 1. So SMU needs a big win here to prove that they deserve the ranking that they're having right now and don't get knocked back when the CFP poll comes out here on Tuesday. So 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2. It's Vegas actually giving an even spread on this one, so that's a freebie for me. Calling over, obviously. I don't think it's going to end in a draw. And then SMU is given a 50.1% chance of winning according to ESPN. So this is a good game. This is a evenly matched teams here. SMU, for me, the top player of the game is SMU quarterback, and I'm going to mess up his name here, so stand with me. But Tanner Mordecia, I think is how you say it. Mordecia. I'm not entirely sure how you say his last name, but I do know he puts up the stats. 2,320 yards passing, 29 touchdowns, and 7 receptions. So this kid can throw it around. I think that's part of the reason the SMU is ranked so highly. San Diego State doesn't have like a flashy player necessarily like SMU does, and that draws the media. In addition to the East Coast bias, Mountain West games are on super late. Nobody watches them. People watch. I mean, for instance, this SMU game is on at 7 p.m., whereas the San Diego State game is on at 10:30 p.m. So that bias playing in right there. We'll have to see how it works out. I do think SMU gets the win in this one. I think it's going to be extremely close. I could see it going either way. And so I'm calling over on that even spread and SMU the win. All right, number 4, 6-2 Fresno State. That's one of those teams from the Mountain West that definitely deserves to be ranked right now, but isn't. 6-2 Fresno State at 7-0, the one team from the Mountain West that is ranked, San Diego State, number 21 in the rankings. That's going to be at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports Network. Absolutely disgusting that this game is this late and so few people are going to watch this amazing matchup. These are the two top teams, I believe, in the Mountain West right now, going head-to-head. This game should be prime time on Fox or on CBS. You know, we should be looking at like a 2 or 4 p.m. kickoff at the very latest. That's what we should be looking at with this. We're not. We're looking at a 10:30 p.m. time that nobody's going to watch. Probably not even the CBS Sport, not even the CFP voters, and that's probably going to impact their voting decisions. Anyhow, San Diego State favored by 1 point, given a 53.2% chance of winning. I think that's a little bit off. I think San Diego State is a good team. This is one of the best San Diego State teams that they've had, obviously undefeated right now in the rankings at number 21. And probably Mountain West-wise, it'd be better, from a Mountain West perspective, it'd be better for San Diego State to go on to win this game because the San Diego State is definitely the best shot. I would say definitely the best shot the Mountain West has of getting a team into the New Year's Six, and so that's more money for each of the Mountain West members. But the reason I don't think San Diego State's going to win this game, and I'm kind of giving you a sneak peek of my prediction there, obviously, kind of giving it away, but is because of quarterback Jake Haener here. He's one of the top quarterbacks, not just in the Mountain West, but in the country. I mean, this is an amazing talent. 2,582 yards passing, so more than the SMU quarterback. 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. An amazing talent who's played great in almost all of the games that he's played so far, and especially against Power 5 competition. He played great against Oregon. He played great against UCLA. So this is and of course Fresno State owns a win against UCLA. So this is a very, very, very good Fresno State team. I think that Fresno State will get the win barely in this one. I don't think it will come down to 1 point. So I'm going to call over on the over-under. I think it's going to be very, very close. I'd probably be calling under on more of these games if the point spread wasn't 1 or 3 points. If we were looking at 4 or 5 point spreads, I'd probably be calling under on a lot of these versus I'm only calling under actually on one of these games this week. But it's going to be a very, very, very close, very closely contested. You are definitely going matchup. You're definitely going to want to stay up late and watch this one. Ton of late games this week that are going to be awesome to watch, and this is one of the ones you're going to want to have to keep on one of your monitors at least. All right, number 3. 6-2 Virginia at number 25. 6-2 BYU. Bronco Mendenhall is coming home. He's coming home to BYU. Of course, left them a few seasons back to go become the head coach at Virginia. Was when Clyde Stockey took over. It's going to be at 10:15 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Again, another absolute robbery. Stealing from BYU and Virginia viewership and just stealing from the fans to have this game this late because it's going to take away so many viewers, especially considering that Virginia is an East Coast team. I mean, a lot of their fans aren't even going to watch this game. So I have no idea why this game is so late. Absolute daylight robbery, literally. But BYU favored in this one, like I said, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2. BYU favored by 2.5 points. UVA, though, favored by ESPN, given a 52.5% chance of winning. This is a big game. This is a really, really big game. Now, there's not a lot riding on this. Virginia's not going to go to the playoffs or even the New Year's Six if they win this game. BYU probably, they're not in the playoffs, obviously. And honestly, even if they won out, they'd be a long shot, a very, very long shot to get to the New Year's Six. They're just playing for the best bowl that they can get right now. And the more wins they have, the better bowl they'll be able to have. So obviously there's not a lot riding on this one. But as far as watchability goes, this is an awesome game. These are two very good teams, both sitting at 6-2, who have had some very, very close losses. And obviously you've got a former head coach playing his former team. This is a massive game. This is a really, really, really good game to watch. And also because this is a good BYU team. Yes, they have lost to Boise State and they have lost to Baylor. But besides that, they've been having an awesome season. They've won against 4 Power 5 teams with their win against Washington State last week. They have wins against 4 Power 5 teams for the first time in their school history. That is a huge accomplishment as they get ready to make the move up to the Big 12. Definitely proving that they deserved to get that bid. So BYU is a very, very good football team this year. They have really at least two, and then maybe 3 competent quarterbacks and 2 very good quarterbacks on their roster with Hall and Romney there. So they can get it done. Their defense is a little suspect, and their offense hasn't been consistent throughout the whole season. That's hurt them. But the main key to them winning in this game, and it's my key player of the game, and I know I mispronounced his name in the Boise State versus BYU, so I make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. This one is Tyler Algiere, not Algiere like I was saying, or Algiere. I can't even remember what I was saying. I was really, really, really messing it up when I was saying the Boise State game. So I heard the feedback. I made sure to correct it. Running back Tyler Algiere, he has 866 yards rushing. He has averaging 5.2 yards per carry for an 11 touchdowns. Now, the games that they have struggled in, like the Boise State game, he didn't rush for that much. He was kind of held in check. Well, he rushed for almost 200 yards last week. I was like 191 or something like that against Washington State. And UVA has given up 200 yards per game, almost 200 yards. It's like 197. But they've given up almost 200 yards per game so far this season. So there's going to be openings. There's going to be opportunities for Algiere to take this team on his back, like he has with quarterbacks that have been dealing with some injuries, to be able to take this team on his back and get this win. Now, I'm rooting for BYU to win this game. I really am. Obviously, Boise State has the win against BYU, so it looks better for BYU to win this game. I am rooting for BYU. Before I give this prediction, and you're probably kind of getting a hint of what I'm predicting, but before I give this prediction, I just want to make that clear that I am rooting for BYU to win this game. However, this is a pretty good Virginia team. They're 6-2. They have a loss to, I believe it's Wake Forest, and I should have wrote it down. I think they also lost to North Carolina. But this is a Wake Forest team. This is a Virginia team that's 6-2 that's been getting better and better each week. And Bronco Mendenhall is just a very good coach for them. He's a really, really good coach for Virginia. He's a good coach for BYU, and he's a good coach for Virginia. And when you compare him to Kalani Sitake, I think he has the edge on this one. So when you're talking about pure coaching battle, it's also not a BYU team that is necessarily playing at 100%. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries. So I would love to see BYU get this win, get that 5th Power 5 win. That 5th Power 5 win will be coming. 5th and 6th and maybe 7th Power 5 win will be coming this season. But I don't think that it's going to happen in this one. I'm predicting a Virginia win in this one. Slightly over on the under-over, but a very close, very competitive, awesome game right down to the final minute. Definitely want to tune in and watch this one. All right, number 2 in the nation here for games to watch this week is number 20, 5-2, Penn State at 6-1, Number 5, Oklahoma State on 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Another surprisingly late game for a really good game like this. Ohio State is favored by 18.5 points and given an 87% chance of winning this one. Now, this is a big game because Ohio State somehow is every year that they've had that critical loss, they still stay in the conversation for the playoffs. 2014 and then this year. So they're still in the conversation, even with that loss to Oregon, who Oregon is almost definitely out of the playoffs, but yet somehow Ohio State is still in the hunt. So they're definitely still in it, but they need to get this win to obviously stay in the hunt, but also to prove to the CFP, to continue to prove to the CFP that they deserve to be in the consideration for this one. And this is a Penn State, they lost in 9 overtimes to Illinois, but they're smarting from that wound, from that loss, and they want to come and prove that they're better than that was a fluke, that they overlooked them, whatever it was. Penn State is always a tough team to play. Now, luckily, Ohio State doesn't have to go play at Penn State because that might be a little bit of a closer game, but it's definitely going to be, I think, a closer game than the experts are predicting on this one. Now, C.J. Stroud for Ohio State has just been having a renaissance in his performance this season compared to how he started the year. He's just been improving week after week after week. He's thrown for 1,965 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Now, what's crazy is that 14 of those 22 touchdowns have come in the last 3 games. He threw 5 touchdowns last, I don't remember which order I wrote these in, but 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. So 14 of the 22 touchdowns he's thrown this season have come in the last 3 games. So he is really heating up. He's on a hot streak coming into a big game. So I do think Ohio State gets the win in this one, but I think it'll be close than experts are predicting. I'm calling under and the over-under. All right, number 1 game of the week. Here it is. Number 6, Michigan, 7-0. At number 8, 7-0, Michigan State. If you would have told me that we would ever, and I don't mean just, recent, past few years or going into the recent future, but I mean ever be sitting at this point in the season, coming into week 9 with 2 undefeated Michigan teams that have, Michigan State sucked last year, and Michigan has just been inconsistently terrible. They've been getting their 8 and 9 wins, that kind of thing, but they really haven't been at the top of their conference. And yet here we are sitting 2 top 10 Michigan teams, Michigan and Michigan State, both undefeated. This is incredible. Noon on Fox, primetime matchup as deserved. Michigan favored in this one by 4 points and 56% chance of winning according to ESPN. Now the big question is, can Harbaugh do it this year? He's been asked every single year to go out and get those big wins, and he's gotten a few, but he has choked at some point, and he hasn't won the big ones. He hasn't beaten Ohio State, and he hasn't consistently beaten the other top teams in the conference, and he's choked at some point and just thrown the whole season away. And the question is this the choke game? Is this the choke game for Harbaugh? Michigan State running back Kenneth Walker is going to have something to say about that. Second in the nation in rushing with almost 1,000 yards, 997 yards rushing, 6.6 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns. I would like to see Michigan. I'm a Harbaugh fan. I really am. I've wanted him to have success. I've wanted him to go dominate in the Big Ten. I really have. I love his spirit, his attitude. I love how he runs up the score on people. I love his persistence and the way that he just gets after it. I really, really do love those things about Jim Harbaugh. And like I said, I'm a Jim Harbaugh fan. But he chokes every single year. At some point in the season, he chokes, and I think this is that game. I think this is the game when all the chips are on the table, when he absolutely has to win it. It just doesn't end up happening. I think Michigan is the better team here, but I just think that Michigan State gets the win in this one. I really do. I think that Michigan gets the win. Michigan State gets the win. I gotta add the state there because obviously 2 teams from the same state. So I do believe that Michigan State gets the win in this one. I'm calling over on the over-under, but I think it's going to be incredibly close. I could see Michigan coming away with this win. I think they deserve to get the win. I think they're the better team. I think this is their year. If they were ever going to do it, it's this year. But he's going to choke at some point. He always does. So I'm calling Michigan State with the win in this one. All right, thank you for watching my video. Thank you for watching my top 10 games of the week. Let me know what your top game of the week is. Let me know what I got wrong in your opinion, what I got right in your opinion, and let me know. I'd love to hear all the feedback that you can give me on how you think this weekend of college football is going to go. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue.